The amount of times that it just shit the bed.
Today, we're going to be talking about Firmware, a short film made in Unreal Engine.
Firmware was my very first time ever trying anything with characters.
You've gone straight into the Metahumans. A lot of people go to gas masks.
Yeah, I had a moment where I was like, every character is going to wear a mask. I don't want to have to do lip sync. Rather than like watching a bunch of tutorials, I just always find that it's better to like absolutely punish myself. I'm actually astonished that I finished it, but the reason I was able to complete it in 2 years instead of like 6 is that just like Unreal Engine is just so fast. The biggest brick wall I hit was battling like memory issues, and I ended up buying a new GPU. Yeah, I went and like met this guy in an alleyway and got my 3090 and came home.
That's the coolest way to get a 3090.
Dude, but it was so good when I got home and I opened up Unreal Engine and it just rendered. I always wanted to work on a Star Wars film, and I worked on like 4 of those. Okay, I've had all the hallmark big moments in my career, and now I'm coming back to like my roots, which was like at my heart, a storyteller.
Calvin's in the house.
Hey.
How's it going, Calvin?
Your color looks so much better than mine. Why do I look so...
That is such a VFX artist thing to say, Calvin.
Oh, what's going on? Yeah, you guys are just going to have to do a bit of DI on the output before you post this.
Talking about VFX, Calvin, I think we've worked on a few of the same jobs in the past.
Really?
Fast and Furious 6 and Jurassic World.
Crazy.
Probably a few others, actually.
Fast and Furious 6 was my very first project straight out of school. And I was a roto artist, and my very first job was doing a split screen and rotoing the skies. And it kind of sucked, honestly, because I was like, I never got the support that I needed from it. That's one thing that some studios are lacking, is like the ability to support juniors or support people who are learning. And that's one thing that my company, like, we're really passionate about, is like supporting the artists.
Shout out to Niche VFX.
Yeah, we started 2 years ago, just like a few friends. Yeah, just we kind of all wanted the same thing. We wanted like a change from the big studios and to do something a little more niche.
There you go.
And we have, just like a big focus on education and being led by values that we share and that we truly believe in. And part of that is, inspiring the next generation of artists and working with great collaborators and great clients.
Amazing. Let's start off with an introduction. Tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Calvin Romeyn. I'm a VFX artist, primarily compositing, but I'm also a bit of a generalist as well. And I also direct short films, and I'd love to direct a feature one day. I'm working towards that. I have a lot of things I'm working on. I worked at ILM on a bunch of Star Wars movies. I worked on some Game of Thrones stuff. I did a bunch of Marvel. And now I'm working at Niche VFX, which is a company that I founded with a few partners. And we do visual effects for film and television.
Great introduction. Thank you, Calvin. Today, we're going to be talking about Firmware.
Sure,
which is a short film made in Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
Using a lot of motion capture, virtual production techniques, virtual cameras. Can you just tell us where that came about? I know it was a text, an idea with your brother.
Yes.
Just give us a little brief background.
I can tell you've watched the behind the scenes.
I have watched behind the scenes, and an amazing video. So if anybody wants to watch a more in-depth behind the scenes alongside this conversation, there was a brilliant one on YouTube.
It was super fun to make that. It's a lot of work. Like you forget how much work it is just to make behind the scenes. It's one thing to like make the film, and then you have to like make a film about making the film. And you're like, I've already done this film. I don't want to do it again. If I go back and think about why I started that project, was that Unreal Engine, they had just announced the Metahumans. The trailer dropped, and everyone's like, oh, this is crazy. This is going to change filmmaking. And then a lot of my friends were starting to dabble in Unreal Engine. And I remember the very first time that I decided, I was like, all right, I'm going to learn Unreal, as I saw a buddy of mine who did like the virtual camera with like the iPad. I'd seen like stagecraft that ILM was doing and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't realize, I was like, man, how accessible it is and how like great it can look, and the fact that Unreal Engine was free. So I was like, man, I should probably try to learn this tool rather than like watching a bunch of tutorials or just trying to like, oh, I want to learn the software because I want to know it. I just always find that it's better to like absolutely punish myself by setting myself up with the most ambitious version of let me learn the software that I can. So I ended up writing like a 24-minute short film, which I'm actually astonished that I finished it. It took 2 years, which I think is fairly short because I work full time. I have 2 kids. It's almost like a full episode of TV. But the reason I was able to complete it in 2 years instead of like 6 is that just like Unreal Engine is just so fast. And I'm used to rendering like a shot, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go to bed and wait for this render to finish overnight. But instead I'm rendering like an entire sequence, and it's like you set up your level, you just block out your shots, and then you hit render, and then you just go grab a coffee and come back, and your render's totally done.
You're too fast, Tin Man!
And then it was also partly like an idea that I had in my head of like, there's a one shot of like the girl and then the droid, the robot, and there's like the sunset and stuff like that. And there's like this kind of post-apocalyptic buildings behind her. It was like one of those projects. I was like, I got to do something like that with these two characters. And the characters kind of fleshed themselves out over the years. And my brother and I wrote the script together. And then my producer as well came on as a co-writer. So the three of us worked together on it. It was super fun to be bouncing ideas back and forth and to work with my little brother on something that we talked about for many years. It was great to finally be able to like see that come to fruition.
Would you say that was what inspired you, just seeing the tool come out, Unreal Engine itself, and people talking about Metahumans? Was that enough?
Yeah. I had made other short films in the past and stuff, and I had, going back to what we were talking about before we started recording, is like I got into piano, and I was like playing piano, learning piano. And then I was taking voice lessons, I was learning to sing, and then I was doing some acting and stuff like that.
You was really preparing for this movie before.
I was avoiding VFX. I was burnt out from previous projects, and I needed new hobbies. And so at the time I was doing it with my music, and I was telling stories in music. Yeah, so I saw the Metahumans. I was like, oh man, like you can do photorealistic humans. And then the ability to use like Rokoko or Accent suits and do motion capture, it's like more accessible than it's ever been. I feel like that kind of like healed my burnout, because since then I've made like one more short film, and then I'm working on another short film right now, and I'm writing a feature as well. So I feel like I've like
back at it.
Yeah, come full circle. Like I think for a long time in my career, my goal was like, I want to work on like certain projects. Like I always wanted to work on a Star Wars film, and I worked on like 4 of those. And then I wanted to work on like Jurassic. We were talking about Jurassic World. Like, so I got to do that, and I got to have a lightsaber shot. And I was like, okay, I've had all the hallmark big moments in my career. And now I'm coming back to like my roots, which was like at my heart, a storyteller.
Of course, your background, knowledge of VFX, filmmaking, like you mentioned, with this project Firmware, how did you like plan for what was to come?
Firmware was my very first time ever trying anything with characters.
You've gone straight into the metahumans. A lot of people go to gas masks and cover up the face. You've gone in with Unreal Engine and faces and metahumans.
Yeah, I had a moment where I was like, every character is going to wear a mask. I don't want to have to do lip sync.
Because it's hard, man.
Yeah, I was like, nah, I gotta challenge myself. So I made most characters have masks. And then there's just the 1 or 2 characters that don't. So I always knew that was going to be a challenge. I initially started in my backyard with my brother with like a suit that we had borrowed, like a motion capture inertia suit that we'd borrowed. And it was great because you could get like instant data. It was pretty good for most things, but where it wasn't going to hold up to the quality that I wanted was where it was like 2 characters interacting or like really precise movements. The inertia suit works really well for like stunts and for like things where you don't have to be in a specific location, but there's this drift that happens. That was a big challenge. I had no idea how I was going to accomplish that. I was like, at one point I was like, maybe we could just like shoot it all separately in my backyard. I was like, there's no way that you could track performances. Like you'd have to, one actor makes an acting choice and then the other actor has to respond to it, and you don't have any opportunity for improv. And then I was researching more like other studios, and then I found Beyond Capture, which is a studio that we ended up working with. Cold call emailed Graham, the owner, and I sent him some of the screenshots I had been working on, and I sent him like a portion of the script, and then he just like loved it. And turns out he was like a fan of like a lot of the inspiration that I was drawing from just like video games and stuff like that, and it is very much inspired by, you know, Last of Us and Half-Life 2 and stuff like that. We managed to come up with a budget, and we did some crowdfunding, and we managed to work with those guys, and they helped us out big time. They really supported the project and allowed us to be able to like make it work for our budget and for the timeline. It was like 3 days, and we got all the data we needed, and it was so rewarding to have that like full studio experience where like they have the sound team and they have like the motion capture experts just to make sure your data is perfect, versus like me in my backyard being like, I hope the data is good.
Recalibrate, go back over there.
Oh, it was the amount of times you had to just recalibrate, like, oh, the suit's not tracking. Oh, it's not working. All right, let's shut it off, turn it back on. But yeah, it just the peace of mind of having like the whole staff just there. It's all time code synced. And so that made it really easy when I got into post of like matching up all the performances. Like it was so smooth, so clean.
That sounds such a relief. I mean,
oh yeah,
to have that. I mean, I've got a question here actually, which kind of followed on from the last one. You know, pre-anticipating potential issues like this. Was there any other ones after that point that was, you know, hit a brick wall? How do we solve this?
Oh yeah. Well, there was one, the problem that anyone who's worked in Unreal Engine knows about, which is just the amount of times that Unreal Engine crashes and just the constant crashes and the compiling shaders 7,986 out of...
That should be on a t-shirt. I'm sure there's a t-shirt out there that would sell out.
I saw somebody with a Halloween costume that was just the Unreal Engine crash. That's so
amazing.
Scary. The scariest Halloween costume. But honestly, as much as I love the tools and Epic Games, thank you for making so much stuff free, the amount of times that it just would just shit the bed. So I think the biggest brick wall I hit was battling like memory issues, and I ended up buying a new GPU like halfway through. I got a 3090. Just the amount of like stuff I had in the scenes and the amount of like the complexity that was required, I just kept running out of VRAM. And so that it came to a point where I literally wouldn't have been able to finish the project. Yeah, I went and like met this guy in an alleyway and got my 3090 and came home.
That's the coolest way to get a 3090.
Dude, but it was so good. When I got home and I opened up Unreal Engine and it just rendered. And I was like, oh.
Amazing.
And so I avoided a lot of crashes after that.
What version of Unreal was you working on this?
I started in 4.26. I think that one was pretty stable. And then I updated to 5 because of the Metahumans, I think. I think I ended up going to 3 different versions throughout the project, which was always a huge risk.
That sounds scary.
I mean, normally I wouldn't do that, right? Normally I'd be like, all right, this is the version I picked. I'm going to stay on that. But the tech was changing so fast at the time.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And they introduced like the Metahuman animator, which had like better facial control. But they released that just at the end of firmware. So firmware is still on the previous version of the facial animation, which is like you have to use like a third-party app. So I use Glassbox by Faceware. They have like tool sets that will like transfer the data into Unreal, like stream it into Unreal Engine, and then you record it in Take Recorder in Unreal Engine. But what they have now, like in 5.3 or whatever it was, they have the Metahuman animator, which uses like the iPhone True Depth camera. And on my latest short film, Sierra, which was like kind of the follow-up to that I did with Double Jump Academy, we did like a full workshop on, hey, you want to make this film? Like I'll walk you through how to do it.
Oh, brilliant.
As part of that course, I created a short film in 10 weeks. And it was like a 5-minute short film with like a little girl and a robot. Nice. Very original. But my point is that we use the iPhone True Depth camera with the Metahuman animator. And the quality of the data you get from that is just so much better. Like the lip control that you get, like the puckering of the lips and like even the tongue. And what was crazy is I didn't even realize, I'm almost like gaslighting myself because I don't believe this, but like her eyes, when the actress was crying, it animated the tears. And I don't know if that was just like, I swear that it's there. Like if you watch the film, it's like she's like, the eyes like look like they're crying. So I don't know if that's part of it. Maybe I'm just imagining it, but I wish I had that on firmware. But I could only do so much updating and so much crashing and so much fighting, troubleshooting.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
How did you plan the look and the feel of the film before starting Unreal Engine? Storyboards, is it the usual concept art, previs? What's the pre-production stage look for this type of project?
I didn't do a ton of concept. I think I did a few storyboards, but what was cool about this was that I was able to just be really fluid in Unreal Engine. And so most of my pre-production was actually just going in the engine and building maps and building environments.
We hear that a lot, actually. It's like being exploring on set and finding things as you're on set.
I always tell people that I was just like, it was like location scouting. Like I went in the engine and I location scouted. And then I basically took like top-down renders of every set, and then I drew out where each character would be for each beat. So I would have like the script, and then it'd have like Zerai, like the main character, in green, and then the robot AL1 in blue. And I'd draw out like, all right, you're going to be here, and then I'd draw arrows. And then that was really cool because then the actors could just see, we'd load up the environment on the motion capture stage, and then they'd see where their characters would be. So most of the look and feel was just developing it beforehand. And then a lot of it was also just sort of resource filmmaking, where like I needed an asset of a survivor girl. So I like found an asset and bought an asset and then revised it tweaked it as much as I could, but I just, I didn't have the time to be like developing everything from scratch. So a lot of it is like kit bashing. I think for the most part, I managed to alter things enough that it wouldn't be immediately recognizable. Like obviously true Unreal Engine artists will notice like the Iceland rocks, mossy rocks and things like that.
But they're there for filmmakers. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? Like you can go on the marketplace, you can buy stuff, you can use it, tell stories, build worlds.
Definitely.
That's a true beauty of, one of many beauties of Unreal Engine is the assets,
the marketplace,
the community, marketplace, all that.
So there was a handful of assets that I did hand model, like very specific things. A lot of people commented on the video that it reminded them of Half-Life 2, which is like one of my favorite video games of all time. And so I did set it in kind of an ambiguous sort of Eastern European setting. And so it definitely was inspired by that. And then a few people mentioned Last of Us 2.
Great inspiration. I mean, when I was watching this short, it's like the world, they rival like AAA game cinematics, the world, the scale, the believability, the level design, everything about it. What's the secret to creating a believable world for these characters to kind of exist in?
That's an amazing question. One of the biggest things is looking at a film that's on paper and then deciding what's the story beyond that. So my brother and I came up with a whole backstory, what happened and why these people are here and what these organizations are doing and why they're doing it. And none of that is stated, but it's all implicit and it's all implied in like the decisions that you make when you're world building. What's the history, what happened before, and then how far back the history stretches. And so like you have a building, for example, and the building was maybe built in the 70s. Was it abandoned in the 70s, or has it been used and repurposed through the 90s and into the 2000s? And then another question you could ask yourself is, was it abandoned in a hurry? Like, did people just immediately leave, or did people have time and they got tired of it and they left for various reasons? So the reasons why it was abandoned is important, right? Because that will determine the type of wear and like the type of debris you'd have. And then another one could be like, was the area that was abandoned accessible? Because if it was accessible, then people would loot it, right? And people would graffiti it. But if it was quarantined and locked off, you'd only have really nature, right? You wouldn't have human. And so all those questions contributed to the type of wear and like the layers that you could have on it. Did the people care? Like what was the temperament of the people? Did they care about it? Did they try to make it good? So like in the urban center, I was like, oh, this person lives here and they're in a shitty situation, but they're going to do their best. So they had like potted plants outside their little house. It's just a list of questions. It's like, how much money does this person have? What's their temperament? What do they care about? What's their life look like? But they make it really easy, like having a very specific reason for every choice you make. Another one I love is like thinking about your needs, like human needs, right? Like every human needs to eat. Every human needs to use the bathroom. That might not be important. You might never see it, but you need to be thinking about it. And so when I was designing those little houses, I was like, okay, well, maybe they have a little table, but they all have to go and line up at this place to get their food. So then there's an insert of people lining up, and then there's like a subtle nod to a sign that I think says like distribution center or something. And I was thinking, oh yeah, they distribute food. So like people have to go and get their food and then come back and eat. Yeah. Thinking of those like basic needs. Everyone needs their basic needs met. How are they doing it in the situation that they find themselves in? Yeah,
it's so important. It really does dictate every decision or every part of the story backgrounds.
Yeah, and I love that stuff. I love like watching something that could be really short, but it alludes to like a way bigger picture. You can tell that there's so much more beyond it, and that like the person put in so much thought to think about like what's the world that this place takes place in.
Definitely.
Yeah, super fun.
What was it like for you and your team just organizing like asset scenes? What was that workflow like compared to what you've been used to in the past?
Yeah, that was a hard one for sure. And I wasn't able to find any really good answers on like how people organize their scenes, because Unreal Engine works in like the entire thing as a project and everything's meant to take place within that project. Whereas if you're working on a feature film, like your Maya scene is like, it's a scene for one shot. And I ended up just doing like a level or like a map for each environment. Like I had some staging levels where I'd do like the animation in like an empty level or like a proxy, a gray shade level. I ended up doing like scenes. So instead of like per shot, it was just like this whole scene takes place here, and it would have like a bunch of camera cuts. And I just did it all inside Unreal Engine sequencer. Like I didn't do any editing externally. Every environment was one long sequence, and it just took place in that map. And then sometimes it would have just like, I think you can do like lighting tracks where like the lighting switches. So you have this block of shots, it's this lighting, set up and then it switches. And that was really cool to be able to just like, scrub through and it's just everything's changing in one level. Really nice to not have to be like opening up different projects and bouncing back and forth and rendering offline all the time.
It's funny because every Unreal Engine event that I go to, as soon as the slide comes up where it's got like asset management kind of workflow, everyone gets the phone out and just takes photos because everybody's process is different and everyone just kind of just wants to maybe take a nugget from the way that they do things or just learn about something. And the community of Unreal Engine, very helpful. It's just really great to see, you know, everyone does it differently.
Yeah, like I think I had like a cinematics folder that had all the shots, and then I had an assets folder that had all the assets. Each asset I think was a blueprint. So some assets had like lights on them, like the little computer thing she had some LEDs that I could use in the sequencer to animate. And then the droid, the robot, had like a colored light that had like material rides. So that was really cool because you could just drag the blueprint into the sequencer and then you could animate lighting and stuff like that on the characters. We tried to have the actors do the whole scene like you would in a play, because when we shot it on the stage, we didn't consider camera moves really. We just ran the scenes. And then I would take each section of that, I'd like have like a master sequence that would like run out that whole sequence, like that whole take.
Yeah.
And then I'd chop it up in the sequencer at a shot level. One thing that I learned was having a dump scene, like a full separate Unreal Engine project that's just like a massive media dump. And every time I'd take something from the marketplace, I would just dump it into there. And then I would just take if it was just static meshes I wanted, I would just take the specific ones I wanted and then I would migrate them over to my project. And that was one good way to just declutter and not allow my project to get too big.
2 years this took, Calvin. You know, you got a full-time job, you got kids, your family. Where does that fit in? How do you balance that?
Yeah.
How do you do the scheduling?
I get that question all the time. People are like, how did you do this? I mean, it's not that I have more time. It's just that if you do a tiny bit of something every single day, you'll finish, you'll do it. And I always like the quote, a continued obedience in a similar direction. So if you're continually obedient to the thing that you set yourself to in the same direction, you will accomplish what you need to do. A lot of times it can be easy just to like sit on the couch and watch Netflix, but that's like, if that's 2 hours that you could be doing on like that creative project.
You could be retargeting MOCAP there.
Yeah, that's right. You could be fixing foot placements. And so, yeah, if you just allocate that time that you would spend like relaxing and do something that's not relaxing at all, that's soul crushing, like troubleshooting Unreal Engine crashes, then you'll have a short film. It takes more discipline for me to sit and play a video game than it does to like be working on my film, because I know that at the end of the night, I'm not going to have accomplished anything. And so now I actually have to make time for video games. So I have to be like, no, Calvin, you deserve this. You can play some Red Dead Redemption. You deserve it. Yeah. And I understand that like not everyone is like that. And I don't know what I'd do if I didn't feel that way. I'm just fortunate that I am just like compelled to continue working on these big, ambitious projects. And the film I'm doing right now I've been working on it for a year now, and it's probably going to be another year, probably maybe more, before I finish it. And I just accept that. And I just know that. I'm like, it's going to take me this short film. It's 15 minutes. It's going to take me 2 years. And I have kids. I have 2 boys. And so they demand a lot of time. It's the same thing. It's like any little like break that I can find. All right, I got 20 minutes. I can do a little bit of animation on this thing.
Can squeeze a shot out.
Yeah. Or like, and sometimes it's all you need is just like that minute to like hit render. But now it's fun because now they're like really interested in what I'm doing. And
cool, man.
Like they watched Firmware. They both did some like voice acting for it.
Nice.
Some really background like kid noises. And so they are really curious about like the stuff that I'm doing on my computer. And so now sometimes they'll sit and watch and they'll ask questions. And they'll be like, "Oh, Daddy, I think that you need to have some more backlighting on that." No, but they'll tell. I
think you're right there. Yeah.
But they'll be like, "It looks bad."
It's time. Mobilize the team. We're going in.
When people were making Unreal Engine shorts, you know, they were saying, it's very game-like. How do you get away from that game-like feel to that cinematic feel using, you know, the Calvin
special sauce?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from just my background in compositing. And one of the main jobs of a compositor is to make it look not CG. And so a lot of it is just the comp treatment. Obviously, like rendering like 24 frames per second as opposed to 30 or 60 makes a big difference, and that's immediately going to look less game-like. The virtual camera was a big part of it too. I had an iPad with like a shoulder rig. I would just loop the actors' performances, and then I'd go and like record camera moves outside in my backyard again. But that was really cool because you could look through the viewport and see your actual Unreal Engine playback, and then you could run around with the actors. But then it's funny because the actors will just walk right through the cameras.
Yeah, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, you almost believe that they're there when you're looking through the monitor. You're like, what the hell? Why are you walking? Like, can you see me here?
Yeah, and you're like, hold on a minute. Can you just do? Oh, actually, it's pre-recorded.
Right.
What am I doing?
Yeah, but it is nice because the actor always does the exact same performance every time. So you can watch it a few times and predict where they're going to be. That did definitely add a lot to the feeling of it being real. It was being like a camera that's actually operated by a human. That's just really hard to do in like keyframe animation. It's just really hard to do.
Any specific like tools that really are like a powerhouse to get this kind of project done?
I would say like a big one was Blender, because Blender's free. And I used Maya for years. It was just for this project that I switched back to Blender. For the most part, it was like all the costumes, like all the wardrobe. So I'd buy like an asset and then I have to like modify it and adapt it to fit the character. So I would bring in the metahuman skeleton into Blender, and then I'd modify the asset to fit her proportions. I'd also modeled a lot of stuff in Blender as well, like just assets from scratch, like a lot of the background buildings, like the big like reactor towers, like all the modular buildings, like all those little white buildings, like those are all made in Blender as well. But I haven't really gone back to Maya since I opened Blender.
Not many do.
My next short film is all in Blender now, so I'm a fan. I'm a big fan.
Nice, man. Were there any tools in Unreal Engine that really, are time savers?
The new retargeter is awesome. The one that I was using at the time was terrible. And I hate it so much. And like you have to do like the bone chains. You gotta like set the bone chains, and then you have to like make like a remap asset that like takes the old bone name and then puts it on the new bone. And then you have to do all the fingers. So there's like a trillion bones. And then the character is like walking like this. Because their legs are on their arms, or like the spine is like upside down. And the amount of jank I got from that.
Really?
Lumen is awesome. I didn't use the path tracer because it wasn't working well. The big one, that path tracing, and I don't know, I've never tried it, but is the depth of field, because depth of field is a post process. And at a certain point, I was like, I don't care. Everyone will know it's Unreal Engine because they'll see the depth of field artifacts. And if I'm going to fix this, I might as well do an offline solution and work in another software. But the point of working in Unreal Engine is that I don't have to render separate layers. I can just make it look good in here. I think there was 3 or 4 shots, maybe 4 shots that I rendered in passes, where I rendered like literally just like put a green card. Like it's so tacky. Like put a green card in, rendered it, and then output it, and then put it in Nuke and comped. Because it was like, I think it was the chain link fence. And the depth of field is so distracting because you have the out of focus fence that are really fine. And so I just put like green, and then I rendered just a still of the chain link fence, and then I comped it in Nuke on cards. That's one advantage of my background, is like it was great to be able to just like fix stuff in comp. And like there was times where I was like, I just render a still of this thing and track it in. All the fire and debris, all the sparks, all the smoke, that was all in Nuke. So yeah, I would say Nuke is another great tool. The non-commercial version, you can use you can render HD with that. If you need 4K, you can use like Nuke Indie. Actually, Foundry gave me a license for the project.
Oh, really? You've got things like Hum 3D, Kitbash 3D, these companies that I imagine, did you reach out to Foundry then?
Yeah. They're all just companies that I really liked their stuff. And I was like, I'm doing this thing. I'm not making any money off it or anything, but I'm just trying out Unreal Engine for the first time, trying out new tools. And I'll share the word about like your products if you guys can help me out. And so they were all like more than happy to help out. And so if you have a cool idea and you just ask, if you're not asking for much, it's exciting for them. They get to like have a project that showcases their products.
I need you to do what you were created for. We're going to shoot our way out of here. Take this.
What are you most proud of with Firmware?
I think I'm
finishing.
I was really excited about the overall reception of it. Like I worked on it for 2 years, and many times I was like, is this worth it? This is dumb. No one's gonna like this, as we all do. But it was really cool to see like Dust picked it up on YouTube.
Yes,
and I think it has like 1.5 million views or something now. And like the comments are generally mostly positive, and some of the like the way that the technology sounds, like I did a lot of like retro, like kind of like hard drive sound effects, and like I had like the dial-up sound effect. I had a lot of fun doing the like the DOS prompt in the hideout when she's like typing the DOS prompt. And a lot of people calling me out, being like, well, it's technically not accurate.
You're going to get that.
Of course. In BC, we have the Leos, which is like the British Columbia Film Awards. And Firmware won the Leo for Best Sound Design in an animated short film.
Oh, congrats, man. That's amazing.
A lot of it changed from what I originally planned, and a lot of it changed and evolved and even sounded different, and music was totally different than what I had pictured. And I think what I had fun with was like just working with them in an area that I wasn't as like skilled with, which is like doing sound design. Like I'm not a sound designer, but it was fun to work with them as being the experts, but then also being able to contribute to it. So there's a lot of times where I would go onto like free sound and I would like download stuff and then make a little mix, and then I'd send it to them and be like, all right, this is exactly how I want it to sound. Can you just make this sound better?
Is there anything that you do differently on this project? This is like a very cliche question, but is there anything that you look back on and think, I really wouldn't do that?
I think it would have been sweet to do it like right now with the Metahuman animator and get like just better facial performance. Like that's the biggest critique from people, is just like the facial. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't feel like, I think it's too close. I feel like in a year or two, I'll be like, I hate this about it. And there's things I don't like about it, of course, but I'm generally quite happy with it. I think I'm pretty happy with it.
When was it finished? When did you go, right, you know what, no more tweaking?
Yeah, I think it was April. I think it was April last year, I think. And then I think the last thing I did was the credits, which...
They're so fun, and I love the visuals on the credits. They're great.
Yeah, everyone tells me like how much they enjoyed the credits, and I think that's one big thing is that like people who work on a film, and for me, having worked on films, like that's like your moment to be like excited. That's like, oh, there's my name. And so to have it treated like it's just like a scroll and it's just like a bunch of names where people are going to turn it off and not watch, I think is a disservice to the people who worked on it. So I believe that like fun credit, I think credits should be fun. I think credits should be engaging just like the rest of the film is, and keep people watching, especially for short film. You're asking someone to watch a short film, and no one's going to watch the credits if they're not a little bit interesting. So I had a ton of fun making those.
We like to just ask for any tips for others, filmmakers starting out in Unreal Engine. What would be a good starting point for somebody who wants to make a short film for the first time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have a couple friends who have kids who are like teenagers. The one gentleman I was talking to was like super stoked about just the idea that like you can literally just click on the marketplace and you can just drag stuff in. I was showing him how you can just drag stuff in, create a little world, and then just do like a really simple camera move, like, tilt down from the sky or something, and just do that first and see if you like it. Create a cool little environment with free assets, and then maybe you add a couple more shots, establishing shots, and make a little like intro scene. And then if you really like that and you feel like you could do more of that, there's like Mixamo. Mixamo has like motion capture loops that you can just download and skin them onto a character. There's tons of characters on the marketplace that are free, and you could easily create like a really short film of like a character walking through a village or whatever, or somebody running and a spaceship chasing. Like you could do all that just in Unreal Engine, just with like free assets. If you want to take it a little step further, I have another short film called Sira. And I made that in, I think, 6 weeks, 10 weeks. And I have a course that goes along with it that shows you how to do that. And I walk through that whole entire film step by step.
Brilliant. Definitely go and check that out. That's a great resource. You mentioned Mixamo. Have you used something called Heat before? A Heat plugin with motion capture.
Is that one of the AI ones?
No, this is, I think they've partnered with Move AI, but before that, they just create amazing motion capture. They got a huge library like Mixamo, super easy to use. We've used it a ton.
Man, I can't believe that I haven't heard of that one.
We've used it a lot. They've integrated with Unreal Engine super seamlessly, drag and drop. It's like so amazing.
Yeah, I just pulled this up. I'll look at this later. This looks really cool. That looks very similar to Mixamo. And that's cool that you can just drag it right in. So try Heat.
Try Heat, there we go.
Try it out.
To wrap up, Calvin, on this, any additional plugins that make life a little bit easier?
I don't think I used anything. I think I just used like the vanilla Unreal Engine, and I think that was what's so cool about it is just that it's all just in there. I think with Blender, I could answer that question better, but with Unreal Engine, it's like...
Okay, here we go then. Quick last question would be, Calvin, what are your top 3 Blender plugins or add-ons that you use?
I got you got to get the better FBX importer.
Of course, that's a great one.
That one fixes the bone orientation issues. Photographer is really cool.
What's that do?
Like a ray traced like bokeh effects in camera, and so you can get like the cat's eye bokeh and stuff like that, anamorphic. That's really cool. The Humanify plugin for Blender is incredible. Like a skin shader, like human skin shader.
Nice.
That's like photo scan, like unbelievably high quality. That one's great. Stop-mo. So I'm creating a stop motion style short film.
Oh, amazing.
And Stop-mo does like the steps for you, but it does it like on a modifier basis. So you can disable and enable. So you can animate like you normally would, spline it, and then you can set it to 2s or 3s. And then you can also have it so it stops and starts. Yeah. And then there's one I used recently as a car one. I forget what it was, car rig, something or other. But Blender's great. There's like so much.
The car rig, was it RBC? There's a really good one. Is it RBC where you just instantly rigs a car and you can drive it around?
Yeah.
It's got physics.
Okay. And it's not that one, but it's similar to that where
Something like
you
that.
go over bumps and it has the suspension. Car rig, Blender. Oh, that's so frustrating.
Is anything to wrap up? Any shout outs? Any thank yous? You've mentioned that you're working on projects.
Yeah, I'm working on a super cool film right now. It is, imagine Wolfenstein meets the Lego movie, but with the maturity of like Love, Death, and Robots.
Sign me up, Calvin.
Think like Nazi zombies, like mechanical Nazi robots in like a World War II setting, but like in Lego with like gore and skeletons, and yeah, it's super cool. It's super fun. It's like all of my childhood things of playing with Lego as a kid, my love for World War II, and then just horror thriller kind of. Yeah, it's super fun. It's all in Blender.
We cannot wait. When's it coming out?
Not a couple of years.
Yeah,
3 to 8 years.
Well, what's the progress bar look like at the moment on
That's
it?
a great question. I just did the math yesterday. I am 6% of the way
Get in.
done comp finals.
Nice. Well, it looks like we're going to get you back on in maybe 2 years' time, Calvin,
Yeah,
to
that's
talk
right.
about that progress.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thanks, Calvin. That was so great to hang out and chat. I really appreciate it, man.
No, that was super fun. That was great. That time went by so fast. We were cooking, man. We were cooking.
Okay, Calvin. Well, enjoy your day.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.
We'll catch up soon, man.
Yeah, we will chat soon. All right.
Bye, Calvin.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.